The day before the party, Victoria's emotions finally pushed her into doing something drastic. She had been relatively civil up to now, but in her mind she thought, if I could just get some distance between Abby and this girl, maybe just reduce her presence around here. That Friday after school, as usual, Abigail had invited Benita over to help with final party preparations, making little gift bags and setting up decorations. Victoria watched the two girls from the doorway of the living room as they excitedly blew up balloons and sorted streamers by color. They looked so happy and innocent. This should be fine, she tried to convince herself. Maybe I'm overreacting. But then she overheard something that struck her heart. Benita was thanking Abigail for including her in the party, saying she'd never had a birthday cake of her own before. Abigail replied, "Now we'll cut the cake together like sisters." They hugged and giggled. It was an innocent, sweet moment, but Victoria's face hardened. In that instant, her resolve solidified. She wanted to put a stop to this closeness before it went any further. If she could show her husband and daughter that their trust in this girl was misplaced, perhaps they'd think twice about keeping her so close. Slipping away quietly, Victoria went upstairs to her bedroom. From her jewelry box, she retrieved a gold bracelet, one of her most precious pieces, encrusted with small diamonds. It had been a gift from Michael on their 15th anniversary. A pang of guilt hit her as she held it, knowing what she was considering doing. But she brushed it aside, convincing herself it was for the greater good of protecting her family. She slid the bracelet into her pocket and went back downstairs. The girls had finished their decorating and were cleaning up stray ribbons. Mustering a warm smile, Victoria approached them. "Girls, the living room looks beautiful," she said, her voice smooth. "You've done a great job with the decorations." Both girls beamed at the praise. Victoria hardly ever complimented their joint efforts, so it was a pleasant surprise. "Thanks, Mum," Abigail said cheerfully. "I was thinking," Victoria continued, "you two must be hungry after all this work. Why don't I fix you some snacks and drinks? Benita, dear, do you like mango juice? We have some fresh." "Yes, please, that sounds lovely." "Thank you, ma'am," Benita replied politely. She still addressed Victoria formally, never feeling quite comfortable enough to call her auntie or by her first name. Victoria nodded and went to the kitchen. She prepared a tray with 2 glasses of chilled mango juice and a plate of biscuits. This she brought back and placed on the coffee table in the living room. The girls each took a glass gratefully and began to sip and chat again, momentarily distracted by the treat. Now came the risky part. The bracelet was still in Victoria's pocket. She realized she needed to slip it into one of Benita's belongings without either girl noticing. "By the way, Abigail," she said casually, "I need your help for a minute with something in the storeroom. The banner for tomorrow's party is on a high shelf. Could you help me get it down?" Abigail, ever eager to help, set down her juice. "Sure, Mom. Be right back, Benny," she told her friend and followed her mother down the hall towards the storage room. Benita remained on the couch, slowly nibbling a biscuit and thinking happily about the party tomorrow. She felt truly included and loved by the Asares. Well, except maybe Mrs. Asare, but even she seemed to be warming up today. In the hallway, once Abigail was a few paces ahead, Victoria quickly doubled back silently to the living room entrance. Seeing Benita's back turned, she seized the moment. Quiet as a shadow, she reached into the school backpack that was resting at the foot of the couch. It was partially unzipped as the girls had taken out some art supplies earlier. With a trembling hand, Victoria slipped her gold bracelet deep into a side pocket of the bag, underneath a pencil case. She then backed out of the room just as silently and continued towards the storeroom, hoping the girl wouldn't notice anything. Her heart pounded. She couldn't believe what she was doing. "This is wrong," a voice inside her said, but she hushed it. "I'll return the bracelet to my jewelry box after this is over. I'm just creating a scenario. She'll understand later." She and Abigail returned a minute later carrying a rolled-up "Happy Birthday" banner. They found Benita finishing her juice. The three hung the banner together, and then the girls gathered their things. It was nearing early evening, and Grace would expect her daughter home. At the door, Victoria handed a shopping bag to Benita. Inside was a new party dress they had bought for her earlier in the week for the celebration. Don't forget this, dear, and be sure to come by 11 tomorrow so we can get you ready with Abigail, she said with a perfectly normal smile. Nothing in her demeanor betrayed the guilt and turmoil in her stomach over what she'd just done. I won't forget. Thank you again, ma'am, Benita said, grateful for the gift. She hugged Abigail goodbye and waved to Victoria politely, then hopped out to the car, where a driver was waiting to drop her home. Michael had arranged pickups and drop-offs whenever needed. Victoria watched the car pull away, her palms sweaty. She knew the next step would be to discover her missing bracelet later that night and set her plan into motion. She swallowed hard, feeling a mixture of dread and determination. That night, after dinner, Victoria made her move. With a distressed look, she came into the living room where Michael was reading the newspaper and Abigail was watching a show on TV. Victoria touched her wrist dramatically. Have either of you seen my diamond bracelet? The gold one I always wear, she asked, feigning worry. Michael lowered his paper, noticing her anxious tone. No, I haven't. Did you misplace it? I don't know, Victoria murmured, acting flustered now. I could have sworn I left it on my dresser, but it's not there. She turned to her daughter. Abby, you haven't seen it, have you? It's very important to me. Abigail shook her head. No, Mum. You were wearing it earlier, weren't you? I was while we were decorating. Victoria pretended to think hard. Yes, I had it on then. I remember because it kept catching on the ribbon, so I took it off. But then where did I put it? We were in the living room most of the time. Michael stood. We'll help you look. It has to be here somewhere. The three of them began to search the living room, under couch cushions, on the mantel, the coffee table, everywhere. Naturally, the bracelet didn't turn up. Victoria faked increasing distress. This is terrible. You know how valuable that bracelet is, Michael. And sentimental value, too. It's all right, we'll find it, Michael assured her, though he was growing concerned given how thoroughly they'd checked. Suddenly, Victoria paused, looking toward where Benita's backpack had been earlier. The only unfamiliar element in the room today was... She trailed off meaningfully. Abigail was quick to catch her implication. You mean Benita? She looked appalled. Mum? You can't be suggesting... I'm not suggesting anything, Victoria said, holding up her hands as if the idea pained her. It's just... We've searched everywhere else. Perhaps we should check with her. Maybe it accidentally got scooped up with her things. It could have fallen in her backpack when you girls were packing up. Michael frowned. The insinuation in Victoria's words unsettled him. It might have fallen into her bag, yes, he said slowly, giving the benefit of the doubt. Accidentally. Let's call her, Daddy, Abigail said firmly, already pulling out her phone. If it fell into her stuff, she'll find it and bring it tomorrow. A short call was placed. When Benita answered, she sounded a bit sleepy, having just finished helping her mother with dinner. Abigail asked if she could check inside her school bag for the bracelet. On the other end, Benita was confused but dutifully began to search her belongings. A moment later, her small gasp came through the phone. I found a bracelet, she said hesitantly. In the side pocket of my bag. Oh no. How did it get there? Her voice was distressed. I'm so sorry, I didn't realize. It's all right, Benita, Michael interjected gently, having taken the phone from Abigail. We think it might have fallen in by mistake when you all were cleaning up. It's good that you have it. Can you bring it with you tomorrow? No need to come out now, it's late. He shot a glance at his wife, whose face was unreadable at the moment. Yes, sir. I'm so sorry for the worry, Benita said in a small voice. She felt mortified that something so precious had ended up in her possession without her knowing. After more reassurances, the call ended. Abigail was relieved. See, it was just an accident, she said pointedly to her mother. She'll bring it tomorrow. Victoria forced a tight smile. Yes, an accident. But her plan was not done. The seed of doubt had been planted with the presence of the bracelet in the bag. All she needed now was to water it a little. She sighed, feigning lingering suspicion. It's just odd, isn't it? How did it fall into a zipped side pocket? It wasn't fully zipped, Mum, remember? We left it half open after we took the tape out, Abigail replied, annoyed that her mother was still pushing this. Perhaps, Victoria said, lifting her chin slightly. I suppose we should let it go. She left it at that, allowing her words to hang in the air. Michael said nothing, but later that night he thought about it. He hated to admit it, but his wife's implied suspicions did tug at him a bit. Could it be possible that... No. He shook the thought away. He had seen nothing but honesty and humility in Benita. And why would she steal and then answer the call and admit she had it? If she had really meant to take it, she could have denied finding it. It truly must have been a mistake. Tomorrow would clear it up, he thought. She would return it and all would be well. He was determined not to judge the girl without proof. The next day, the house was abuzz with preparations for the party. Caterers set up in the backyard. Balloons and streamers fluttered in the gentle breeze. Grace brought Benita over early as requested. She handed the precious bracelet directly to Michael as soon as she arrived, apologizing profusely on her daughter's behalf for the mishap. Michael noticed her eyes looked troubled. Clearly, the incident had upset them. He kindly told her not to worry, and that such things happen. Victoria watched from a distance, her lips pressed thin. She had hoped her husband might scold the girl or at least treat her coolly, but he seemed his normal warm self. This frustrated her. It was time for the final act. As the party began and guests arrived, music and laughter filled the Asare home and garden. Children ran about playing games and adults chatted under a canopy. Both birthday girls, Abigail and Benita, were dressed beautifully. Abigail in a pink lace dress and Benita in the lavender dress Victoria had bought. It fit her perfectly, and she looked like any other happy 13-year-old, beaming and standing next to Abigail while everyone sang Happy Birthday around a big frosted cake. To onlookers, it was touching to see the wealthy family include the less fortunate friend so fully. A couple of the society ladies even commented quietly to Victoria about what a kind thing they'd done. Victoria smiled politely at those remarks, but inside she remained on edge. She had one more maneuver planned. She would bring up the bracelet incident one more time in front of her husband and perhaps a family friend or two, to drive home the point that this girl might be untrustworthy. The chance came as the party was winding down and only a few close family friends remained. Abigail and Benita were outside showing some classmates a new bicycle, so they were out of earshot. Victoria, standing with Michael and one of his friends, casually said, "By the way, we found my bracelet. You'll never guess. It was in little Benita's bag." Michael stiffened slightly. His friend raised an eyebrow. "Really? How did it end up there?" the friend asked. Victoria gave a small shrug and a meaningful look. "Who knows? The girls said it was an accident. Perhaps it fell in while cleaning up. I got it back safely, so we didn't make a fuss." The friend gave a half smile. "Ah, well, as long as it's back." Michael frowned at his wife, sensing her intent to stoke doubt. He decided to shut it down. "Yes, it's back. That's what matters," he said firmly, then changed the topic. It seemed her ploy still hadn't gotten the reaction she wanted. Victoria grew increasingly flustered internally. She told herself that after the party she would speak to Grace directly, perhaps hint that her daughter should be taught not to touch things that aren't hers. Something to sour the relationship, so the Owuses might withdraw out of pride. Yes, that might work. But fate, or rather her own earlier actions, intervened in a way Victoria did not anticipate. Unbeknownst to her, Michael had quietly instructed the house security officer that morning to review the CCTV camera footage from the previous day in the living room. Michael trusted Benita, but as a thorough man he wanted to erase any niggling doubts by seeing exactly what had happened. The cameras in the house were discreet, installed for security against intruders, and indeed one was positioned with a clear view of the living room. Now, as the party neared its end, that security officer approached Michael with a tablet in hand. In a low voice he said, "Sir, I have the footage you asked for. Perhaps you'd like to see it in private?" Surprised but recalling his request, Michael excused himself from the remaining guests and stepped into his study with the officer. There, he watched in growing horror as the video showed plainly what had occurred. Victoria sending Abigail away, then sneaking back to slip the bracelet into Benita's bag. Michael felt his face go cold, a mix of anger and disbelief swirling inside him. His own wife had staged the entire incident. To what end? To make the child look bad? He rubbed a hand over his face, struggling to calm himself. Thanking the officer and telling him to keep this matter private, Michael left the study with resolve. He needed to address this immediately. Outside, Grace was helping collect the open presents and tidy up plates, ever humble and helpful even as a guest. Benita and Abigail were still playing with a few friends. Michael quietly called Victoria over to the side porch where it was secluded. Sensing the serious look on her husband's face, Victoria's heart skipped. Did he know? "Victoria," Michael said in a tone laced with controlled anger, "we need to talk." "Yes? What is it, Michael?" she answered, trying to sound calm. "I reviewed the security footage from yesterday." He watched her face drain of color. "I know what you did." Victoria's mouth went dry. She glanced around to make sure they were out of earshot, then whispered urgently, "Michael, let me explain." He held up a hand. "I don't think anything can justify what I saw. You planted your bracelet in that poor girl's bag, Victoria. You tried to frame a child who trusts us, as a thief. How could you?" There was both anger and disappointment in his voice, hitting Victoria with full force. She flushed with shame and panic. I was trying to protect our family," she sputtered softly. "You've let her in so close I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Michael snapped, keeping his voice low but intense. "That she'd steal from us? She never has. Or perhaps you were more afraid that she's become part of our family in a way, and you resented it. This was about your pride, wasn't it? Not wanting someone from outside to have a place in our lives." Victoria's eyes welled up. Having her true feelings laid bare like that was painful. Maybe it was," she admitted haltingly. "I was wrong, Michael. I see that now. I felt like I was losing something. I can't explain it. I went about it terribly wrong." "Terribly wrong is an understatement," Michael said sternly. "What you did was cruel. Imagine if we hadn't discovered the truth. You would have destroyed that innocent girl's reputation and her friendship with Abby, not to mention completely disheartened them both. After all we did to build her up, you would have torn her down out of spite. And you had Grace and her daughter apologizing to us for something they never did." He shook his head, disappointment etched on his face. "I'm going to have to fix this." Michael stepped away, intending to find Grace and speak with her immediately, but Victoria grabbed his arm, tears spilling now. "Please, Michael, don't tell them," she begged quietly, voice breaking. "It will only hurt and humiliate everyone more. I'm sorry, I realize how horrible my actions were. I'll apologize to them sincerely, I promise. But maybe we can keep the details." He looked at his wife, the woman he loved despite her flaws, and saw genuine remorse and fear in her eyes. Fear of losing face, yes, but also fear of losing their respect forever. He sighed deeply. "All right. I won't tell them exactly what happened with the footage, but you will apologize, and properly. And God help me, Victoria, if you ever do anything like this again." He didn't finish the threat. He just let it hang. She nodded quickly, sobbing once. "I understand. Thank you." A short while later, when most guests had left and it was just the Asaris and Awusis cleaning up the last of the party decorations, Michael called everyone into the sitting room. Abigail and Benita exchanged puzzled glances, sensing something serious. Grace looked worried, not sure what was happening. Victoria, still red-eyed from crying in private, stood with her hands clasped tightly. Michael gently put an arm around her, both to show unity and to subtly support her in doing the right thing. "We wanted to have a quick family talk," he began kindly, including the Owusis in family by tone. "It's about the bracelet incident and a misunderstanding." Grace immediately looked anxious, thinking perhaps they were upset with her daughter. "Mr. Asare, I'm truly sorry if any—" Michael held up his hand to stop her. "No, Grace, you and your daughter did nothing wrong. In fact, I owe both of you an apology." He turned to his wife. "Victoria?" Victoria swallowed hard, stepping forward. She looked first at Abigail, whose face was a mix of confusion and concern, then at little Benita, who despite everything wore no resentment, only worry that she or her mother might be in trouble. That made Victoria feel even worse. I need to apologize, Victoria said, her voice trembling slightly. Especially to you, Benita, and to you, Grace. She paused, gathering herself. The way I acted about the missing bracelet was wrong. I doubted your integrity when I shouldn't have. I let my own fears and prejudices get the better of me. And I hurt you by not trusting you. She took a shaky breath, eyes glistening. The truth is, I was being unfair and unkind. And I am deeply, truly sorry. Benita blinked, a bit taken aback. She hadn't expected this from the elegant, aloof Mrs. Asare. Grace, too, was surprised, but a quiet understanding came over her. She had sensed the woman's discomfort before, and perhaps this was an admission of that. Abigail stepped closer to her mother and gently touched her arm. Mum, it's okay. We know now it was a mistake. But Michael interjected softly, wanting full clarity. Actually, Abby, we found out it didn't just fall into the bag by mistake. Your mother placed it there. Everyone fell silent, eyes widening. Victoria closed her eyes, a tear rolling down. She hadn't wanted that spoken aloud, but she knew she deserved the shame of it. Abigail gasped. Mum, you hid it in her bag. How could you? Her tone was a mix of shock and hurt. Mummy, why? Benita asked in a whisper, not even realizing she had addressed Victoria in the familiar way she heard Abigail do. The betrayal stung all the more, knowing it was deliberate. Grace put an arm protectively around her daughter, as if shielding her from the unpleasant truth. Her expression was one of deep disappointment. However, always seeking peace, Grace softly said, Mrs. Asare, I can't pretend this isn't painful to hear, but I appreciate your apology. It means a lot that you owned up to it. Abigail's eyes were full of tears now too, looking at her mother almost as if she were a stranger. I can't believe you'd do that to Benita after everything. She's my friend, Mum. We were all so happy. Victoria hugged her own arms, trembling. I know. I was wrong. I was foolish and jealous, Abigail. I'm sorry to you too. I betrayed your trust as well. I was afraid of losing you, of things changing too much. It was irrational and unfair. Benita stepped forward a little, wiping her face. In her heart, all she wanted was peace. Mrs. Asare, I forgive you, she said quietly, her voice sincere. She couldn't hold a grudge. Life had taught her too much about compassion. I know you were just worried. I hope you will accept me now as Abby's friend. I would never do anything to harm your family. You've changed my life for the better. At that, Victoria broke down and came forward to embrace the girl in a rare show of emotion. I'm so sorry, dear, she repeated, hugging her gently. And thank you. You're very kind to forgive me. I don't deserve it, but I will try to be better. Abigail sniffled and joined the hug, and soon even Grace and Michael folded into a circle around them. There were tears and pats on backs, and in that huddle the last of Victoria's resistance melted away. She realized this wasn't her family versus an outsider. This was one merged circle of people who cared about each other, and she was welcome in it if only she let go of her pride. After that day, things improved significantly. Victoria, true to her word, worked on accepting and even embracing the friendship. She invited Benita more warmly, asked her about school and her interests, and visited Grace's stall with genuine smiles, even buying a dress from Grace and proudly wearing it to church. The tension in the air dissolved, replaced by a new normal where the Asares and Awusas treated each other with respect and affection. With all obstacles and misunderstandings behind them, life moved on with a promising glow. Benita continued to thrive in school. By the end of the term, she had caught up to her grade level and even excelled, ranking near the top of her class. Her teachers praised her diligence and potential. Abigail cheered the loudest when her friend received a special award for academic improvement at the school assembly. At home, Grace's sewing business flourished so much that she eventually hired an assistant to help with the growing orders. She never forgot the Asari's kindness, Every stitch she sewed felt like an act of gratitude. She even made a beautiful bespoke suit for Michael as a gift, which he wore with appreciation to a company function, bragging to colleagues that it was made by a talented up-and-coming designer he knew. As for the friendship between the two girls, it only grew stronger with time. They truly became like sisters, sharing dreams and secrets. Sometimes they stayed at each other's homes. Benita loved the comfort of the Asares guest room and playing big sister to Abigail's younger cousins when they visited, while Abigail equally enjoyed the warmth of the Owusu's cozy apartment, where Grace would treat her to tasty homemade meals and they would all watch movies on the couch. Victoria, once wary and cold, became surprisingly fond of Benita. She saw how the girl's influence on Abigail was nothing but positive. Both girls volunteered together at a local children's library and studied earnestly. If anything, having a friend who knew hardship made Abigail more empathetic and mature. Recognizing this, Victoria let go of her fears. In time, she even started to treat Benita like part of the family, making sure to get her a gift whenever she bought new things for Abigail, and proudly introducing her to friends as my daughter's best friend, practically one of our own. One sunny afternoon a few years later, a familiar sight could be seen along that same beautiful Accra street where a barefoot girl once sold oranges. Two teenage girls in well-pressed school uniforms strolled down the sidewalk, laughing and talking about an upcoming science fair. One might have recognized one of them as the former orange seller. It was Benita, now taller, healthier, her eyes bright with education and hope. The other, Abigail, her ever-loyal friend, playfully nudged her as they walked. They passed by a vendor selling oranges at the corner, a young boy calling out to customers. Benita paused and bought a couple of oranges from him with some pocket money. As she handed one to Abigail, she took a moment to reflect on how far she had come. Not long ago, that had been her standing under the hot sun. Now, thanks to a simple act of kindness and the bond that followed, her path was completely changed. "I still love the taste of these," Benita said, biting into the juicy fruit as they continued walking. "They are the sweetest oranges in Accra, after all," Abigail joked, echoing the lines Benita used to call out on the street, and both of them laughed. In the years to come, Benita Owusu would go on to finish secondary school with top marks, with Abigail Asare always by her side. University and bright careers awaited both, but more importantly, they knew they had a lifelong friendship, forged by chance on the roadside, tested by challenges, and strengthened by understanding and forgiveness. No longer did Benita have to hawk oranges or worry where the next meal would come from. Those difficult days were firmly behind her. Instead, she carried textbooks in her arms and dreams in her heart, dreams she could now pursue without hindrance. And whenever she needed a reminder of how blessed she would remember that fateful day when a car window rolled down and a kind girl smiled at her. Benita's days of selling oranges under the scorching sun had ended forever. Now her future was filled with the promise of education and the support of a loving community. In the heart of Accra, two families had become one through friendship, proving that empathy and kindness can bridge any gap. And as Benita focused on her studies, she knew she would never walk alone again, for she had found not only an education and a better life, but also the true richness of having people who cared. Benita was just a poor girl selling oranges on the streets of Accra, struggling to care for her sick mother. But one act of kindness, from a stranger her own age, changed everything. A small gesture, a bundle of cetus, a smile, and her life took a new turn. The lesson? No matter how small, your kindness can be someone else's miracle, and no matter how hard life is, hope can appear when you least expect it. Thank you for listening to Tales by Kwame. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful tales. Until next time, keep the stories alive.